Hello and welcome to episode 69 of the Law Firm Marketing Mastery Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Christopher Small, and I'm really excited about this week's episode. We've got someone on here that I know you're going to be interested in. He is going to teach us a lot about how to start and build a successful practice. He's going to teach us a lot about social media and how to use it correctly. And he's got a lot of other great nuggets in there. But before we get to that, as always, kind of want to talk about my week, talk about what's going on at the firm, and with Law Firm Confidential, things like that. I had another one-on-one meeting with one of the members of Law Firm Confidential this week, and as always, it was a great experience, and it just reiterates to me that all of us out there trying to do this are kind of experiencing the same thing, going through the same problems, and working through the same fears, frustrations, roadblocks, things like that. So when I talk to people like that, it's great because it's sort of like a window into what many of you are thinking and feeling. And so that was great. We did some great. We talked about some great things, and I know that she's going to be really excited and moving forward in a great way. So if and if any of you are interested at all in joining Law Firm Confidential, it's basically, and I'll run through this real quick, but Law Firm Confidential is basically a membership site that I created where I deep dive into how to start and build a successful law firm. Okay, I start from the very beginning as if I was opening a new firm again. And I continuously add new content as the business would be building. Okay, so we've got some great marketing stuff in there, some great management stuff, a lot of great mindset stuff in there. So it's really good. And I know it could be beneficial to you, even if you're not starting a law firm. If you've already started and you're kind of stuck, you're in a rut. Your business is working you instead of you working your business, then this might be the right thing for you. You can check that out at lawfirmmarketingmastery.com/confidential. All right. Another cool thing I did this week was I actually joined another group. I became a member of another group called Solo Lab. And what Solo Lab really is dedicated to is creating and building and executing great podcasts. Okay. Because I know I've heard from many of you that you like what I'm doing here, but I'm also starting a new podcast related to the firm, and I really want that to go off with a bang. I want it to start fast, and I'm going to be asking you guys to help me with that, but I wanted to get some help, some coaching on how to do that the right way, how to start that podcast the right way, how to build it the right way, how to structure it the right way. So I've been doing that, and it's called Solo Lab. It's the guy that runs it is his name is Michael O'Neill, and he has a podcast called the Solopreneur Hour, and he basically interviews entrepreneurs and gets great nuggets from them, gets their stories out of them, and it's something that it's a podcast I really love. It's one of the he puts episodes out Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I listen to it on my drive into work. So if you're interested at all, just in learning about who he is and getting access to one of the resources that I really like and use, then go check him out, and I'll link to him in the show notes too. But anyway, okay, on to this week's show. So I had the honor, I guess, and privilege of joining this gentleman in a masterclass, right? The masterclass is how to start and build a successful law firm, and also how to use social media to really promote your firm and to do it in the right way, a way that will actually work for you instead of a way that actually just fills up people's Twitter feeds with junk, right? Which is what happens a lot of the time. This person was admitted to the bar, California. He's a California attorney in 1986, and he immediately opened up his own practice. He comes from a family of entrepreneurs. His parents owned a ranch, sort of like a dude ranch, for lack of a better description, down in Arizona. They hosted celebrities and things like that from back in the day, and he witnessed not just how a family business can run successfully, but he also saw firsthand how fulfilling it can be to own your own business and know that the work that you put in is what you're going to get out of there. This person is a personal injury lawyer, okay, on the plaintiff's side. He is really, really good at what he does, okay? He's been doing this, like I said, since 1986. So we're on, 30, coming up on 30 years, 28 years right now, I think, in practice. In 2009, he was named the Orange County Trial Lawyer of the Year by the Orange County Trial Lawyers Association. In 2011, he was again nominated for Trial Lawyer of the Year and was also nominated for the CAOC Street Fighter of the Year award. Then in 2013, last year, he received the California Lawyer Attorneys of the Year award for litigation. All right. So this guy's really, really good at what he does. He is the owner of his firm. He is very active on Twitter. That's how I found him. I don't know exactly how I came to follow him, but I did. I reached out to him. We would kind of talk back and forth about some of the topics that we put out there on Twitter, and got to get to know him a little bit. And I knew that he'd be a perfect fit for the show. Asked him to come on, and obviously he agreed. He loves this stuff. He has his own podcast too, which we'll get into in the interview itself. He also has a blog called Trial Lawyer Communication Tips for Everyone. And the kind of the tagline of that blog is learn how to make your point, fascinate others, and close deals just like the best trial lawyers in the world. This is the blog that I follow religiously. I'm on his email list, so that whenever he puts up a new post, it gets sent out, because the point of his blog is sort of to reach everyone, but he shares what works for him as a trial attorney. So any nuggets that I can get from the Trial Lawyer of the Year, I'm going to take. All right. So this guy's good. He's awesome. The interview is fantastic. His name is, his name is Mitch Jackson. And let's just dive right into it. Here we go. So who are you and what do you do?
Hey, Chris, my name's Mitch Jackson, and I'm in a profession that helps people. That's what I do. I'm a trial lawyer, and we make sure that people's rights are protected. We make sure that the little person that doesn't have a voice, doesn't have the finances or the resources to protect his or her legal rights, we make sure that those rights are protected against big corporate America, big insurance companies, and everything in between. So thanks for having me on your show today, Chris. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you having you here. Now, so there's a lot more to you to that than what you just said. We're going to get into it some more.
Okay.
But you own your firm too, is that right?
Yes, past 28 years, been practicing law here in Southern California, and we're a firm that focuses on helping consumers. Met my wife in law school, and 3 or 4 years after we both got out of law school, she came over with me and became my partner, and so she and I have been running the firm ever since, and have never looked back. And even if we did look back, we would not have done anything different. It was a great decision to have a family business, and recommend anyone interested in starting a business or expanding their law firm to do so, where they can call their own shots, manage their own calendar, and do their own thing. That's the only way to go. Life's too short.
Right, and you don't come from a family of lawyers, but your family owned its own business. Is that right?
That is right, Chris. I grew up in a guest ranch in Tucson, Arizona, owned by my mom and dad, and it was a city slickers type of place where people from all over the world would come and play cowboy. And
nice.
It was the hospitality business, family-owned business. I got to watch my mom and dad, and all of us worked basically 24/7 to cater to the guests and to make sure their experience was one that they would remember, and one that was so good that they would come back and see us again the following year. Lisa's my wife, my partner, Lisa Wilson, mm-hmm. Her mom and dad had a family-owned dairy distributorship out in Lancaster, California, the Antelope Valley, just northeast of LA. And so she grew up in the family business, mom and dad working together to to frankly build a company that started with Mike unloading milk cartons from the back of a milk truck to 20 years later owning his own successful dairy distributorship. So we both brought our background of being brought up in family-owned businesses into starting and building our law firm.
Now, do you think, is that one of the reasons why you wanted to open your own firm, or was there something else behind that? What do you think was the driver behind that?
Well, I always knew that I wanted to have my own company, my own business, and I've always gravitated to the law. We had a lawyer that lived up the street that my dad and I would go scuba diving with down in Mexico all the time. We'd hunt and fish together all the time, and the guy impressed me, and I like listening to his war stories. He was an assistant district attorney in Tucson, Arizona, and so I always knew this was probably something I wanted to do. With that in mind, when I started clerking in law school, I purposefully started clerking for small law firms or sole practitioners to try to get a feel for what type of law do I want to practice, how do I want to go about practicing it, how do I want to run my law firm, market my law firm, and basically try to build a life, design a life that would allow me to put family first, and then also take care of the clients and work the hours I wanted to work, take the cases I wanted to take, and try as many cases as possible. So it was relatively by design. It wasn't that well organized of a design. Right. I'm your typical guy, but over the years it's all kind of come together, and it's been a very good, a lot of mistakes, but also a lot of smart moves, and that's the only way you move forward in life is you learn from your mistakes, you keep moving forward, and good things will happen.
Right. And I want to talk about this for just a couple minutes longer, and you have a bunch of cool stuff going on. So we're going to talk about a bunch of different stuff, but a lot of the listeners here are small firm owners, solo law firm owners. A lot of them are just starting out, trying to find their way. And so I want to kind of, I guess, go a little deeper into kind of your first couple years, because it's easy. It's kind of like with anything you do. You look back and you sort of gloss over some of the struggles maybe, or you just forget about some of the things that were going on at that time. And I love to talk to people that have started and built very successful law firms, because it's the experience of those people that really, I think, can provide a great perspective to people who are in those trenches right now, concerned about maybe making payroll, or they're not sure what to do next, that kind of stuff. So, you talked a little bit about some mistakes that you made, and then some good things that you did too. Maybe, can you just give us maybe just one or two examples of each of those things? Maybe something that
Sure.
You struggled with early on, and then if there was some turning point, if there was something or some set of things that happened to kind of really send you on the trajectory that you're going now. Talk about those a little bit as well, because I think those are what people would be really interested in.
Well, let me take you back to 1985, 1986. That's when I graduated from law school, passed the bar, and started my own firm. During that period of time, there wasn't the internet as we know it, the easy-to-use World Wide Web, and basically the fanciest apparatus in the law firm, most law firms was a fax machine or a copy machine. And it was actually pretty difficult, to get your name out there, to start building a reputation, to start getting clients in the door. Much more difficult back then than it is today. With social media, with the internet, with blogging, it's so much easier for people to connect, for a new lawyer to connect with other people, for you and I to connect. Having said that, there are new challenges. It's a lot noisier out there. There's a lot more information being provided to the consumer. So there are new hurdles that people and young lawyers need to deal with today in starting a firm that I didn't have to deal with back in 85 and 86. But going back to 85 and 86, the best thing I did is I created a scenario where I didn't spend more money than I had to start my law firm. I actually worked out a deal with another lawyer to this day who's still a friend of mine. We still refer cases back and forth. But what he let me do is use his conference room, use a back room in his firm as a place to meet with new clients. And in exchange for him allowing me to use his address as my law firm address and to use one of his backline phone numbers to take incoming calls and things like that. I love your system, by the way. I was going to bring mine into the office today.
He says hello.
Well, tell him I said hello too. And, it's one of these things where I started off intentionally doing so by not incurring any debt, by keeping my expenses to a minimum, and by doing what I needed to do to make sure that the money that was coming in each month from clients was just a little bit more than what my initial expenses were. I had other friends that didn't do that. They immediately went out and leased, the top floor of one of the most expensive buildings in either Orange County or downtown LA. The monthly nut on that, on both of these examples, is just outrageous. And they didn't even have a single client, but they were hoping that this atmosphere would bring in a certain type of clientele. In both cases, it didn't work out for either one of them. And so I think it's just a matter of making smart business decisions when starting your practice. So those would be two examples.
So, and was there a point when things really took off for you, or was it sort of a gradual growth over time?
It's a marathon. It was definitely gradual. When I first started practicing, you're going to get a kick out of this, Chris. I'd be down at Main Beach and Laguna Beach. I've got my office, quote unquote, which is a back conference room of a friend's law firm. Mm-hmm. And so I had a couple of clients, a couple of guys and gals that were looking for a lawyer. As soon as I passed the bar, when I passed the bar, they'd come in, I'd meet with them. I'd also go down and play a lot of basketball down at Main Beach and Laguna Beach. So I'd be down there at 9 a.m, shooting baskets, networking. Looking back, that's what was happening, relationship building, expanding my sphere of influence, every once in a while hitting a three-pointer, and started to get a name for myself. Hey, this is the lawyer playing ball down at Laguna Beach. And my wife would call me and she'd say, 9:30 in the morning, where are you? Well, I'm down at Main Beach, playing basketball. And she'd laugh, and I'd say, where are you? Well, I'm at the office behind the desk with, 6 feet of files sitting in front of me. And so what I did do is when I wasn't sitting across the table from an existing client, I was always out doing something I enjoyed doing. And at the same time, I was there to answer other people's legal questions. And over time, whether it was shooting baskets, riding motocross at the local tracks, in the surf, whatever it might be, I was always out letting people know that I'm there to help them as a lawyer. So, and it was a fun way to start building the reputation of the practice.
Right. And that's a great story and I think great advice for people. And I want to get into just a little bit more specifics, because I know that people hear other people talk about this kind of networking thing all the time. Do something that you'd like, and meet people. Was there any sort of method to your madness, or was it really truly just, you're out there shooting hoops, somebody asks you what you do, you tell them you're a lawyer, and they have a problem, or...
Sure. You know what, Chris? Chris, there was a method. And my method was from day one to whatever I'm doing when it comes to servicing a client, doing the very, very best that I can, providing the best service, spending time in the evening, spending time on the weekends, researching the law. If it's not something I was familiar with, or if it's the type of case I hadn't handled before, working harder than everyone else so that when I showed up Monday morning for trial, being the most prepared lawyer in the courtroom. And I don't want to gloss over that. Everything I'm talking to you about, it's easy to go out and meet people shooting baskets down at Main Beach. But I was also the guy, before getting married, before having a family, who would come in on a Saturday morning, maybe after basketball or even early before, and I'd put in the time to learn what I needed to do to outwork the other side. My game plan was always to outwork the other side. I don't see a lot of lawyers with that attitude today. And I know I'm probably showing my age by saying that, but there's no substitute to hard work. So if you're going to be out networking and building relationships, that takes hard work. Why not be doing that while you're also participating in activities that you're passionate about or that you enjoy? That's the best way to combine both activities into one time slot. And for me, it kept me sane. I mean, as you well know, Chris, practicing law can be grueling, but if you approach it in a way where you enjoy the marketing aspect, the relationship building aspect of it, because you're doing something you enjoy doing, then it's a lot more fun. I was not the guy that enjoyed going down to the local bar association meetings at 6 o'clock at night and standing around for 3 hours and talking law with other lawyers 2 or 3 times a week. That's not what I enjoyed doing. So I purposefully didn't focus the development of my practice with those activities.
Sure. I'm the same way. And I guess we're going to move on here, but I don't want to gloss over one point that you made that I think is really, really important and critical to not just starting a successful firm, but building a firm. And one of the things I talk about relatively often is that, you got to think about how to get people in the door, right? That's critical, because if you don't have clients, you don't have a business. But there's a second side to that, and that is actually providing the service that you are representing you're going to provide at the time, and if you don't back up what you promise up front, then you're going to have a much harder time really building something strong and successful, because you're not going to have anyone out there kind of championing your cause. You're not going to have anybody out there that can back up further what you're saying. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
I just think your comment, I just think your comment about, making sure that you work hard and that you are doing the best to provide the best service is important, and something that we shouldn't gloss over, because I think it's probably a really big factor in the success that you've seen, over time.
And you hit the nail on the head. That's so important, Chris. Back in the day, here's the game plan. If a client was referred to me, or if I met someone that needed legal help and I felt it was something that I was qualified to help him or her with, I would put in the time to learn the ins and outs of that particular area of law, what I needed to do, whether it's under the Code of Civil Procedure, the Evidence Code, presenting evidence at trial, whatever it might be. And I did it. I outworked the other side. Along those same lines, if a case came to me that was over my head, I had no business in representing this client, I would tell the prospective client that. And I would go out of my way to make sure that that prospective client was referred to the best law firm in town that was capable of handling that type of case. And I use that as an opportunity to meet a new lawyer, one of the partners at the firm, letting him or her know I'm referring this case over. This is what's going on. This is why I'm referring it. And I can't tell you how many long-term win-win relationships I've built over the years, especially the first 5 or 10 years of practice, just by approaching things that way. It's just being honest with the client.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and there's another lesson in there too. And it's something I was just talking about. Our law clerk today was, if you want to meet people, you need to think about how you can help provide value for them, before you even think about getting anything in return.
Absolutely.
If you want to meet people up the rung on the ladder, just find some way that you can help them out in any way, to kind of get your foot in the door, and then you kind of just create a relationship from there. But so two great lessons from that story. Okay, let's move on a little bit. I was talking with a chiropractor the other day, and he looked at me and he said, "Chris, what's your why? What is your why? Why are you in this business?" And there's that Simon Sinek TED Talk, and there's all this stuff.
Sure.
And I love to talk to people too about the why. And as we talked a little bit kind of in the pre-interview, and the way I see it, there are two kind of whys. There's sort of the why you gravitate toward a practice area potentially, but there's also the why you started a business, and I call it a vehicle for dream realization. yes, I'm in this business to help people. That's why I'm a lawyer, and that's why I practice in the areas that I practice. But the business itself is also a vehicle to give me certain freedoms that I might not otherwise have. And I wanted to just kind of ask you about what your why is. So what is your why?
Well, that's a really good question. And I would say, going back in time, I've always had this internal drive to make a difference in the world, in my life, in the lives of others, and the lives of people that I can touch, I can affect. And so that's always been one of my internal reasons to keep getting up each morning and doing what I do. And I'd like to think the older I've gotten, the wiser I've become and the more genuine I've become in this why. So to answer your question, I've always wanted to make a difference, and I've always appreciated the fact that being a lawyer, and specifically a trial lawyer, is one of the best avenues to take to make that difference. With respect to the mode of making a difference, in other words, being in a large firm or a small firm, a boutique firm, I've always wanted to have my own business since I did grow up in a family business, but I wanted to have my own business so that I could call my own shots. I could decide who I wanted to represent, what type of cases I wanted to take, what hours I wanted to work, and if I wanted to scoot out at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and coach my son's Little League baseball team or watch my daughter run cross country or track for her high school, that I had the flexibility to do that. So the particular path I took with being a small law firm owner was very much influenced by my desire to be able to call my own shots and have some flexibility with my schedule. I'll tell you right now, if a client comes in and we don't connect, or I think the client's retaining me for the wrong reasons, I will not take that client. If a judge is trying to set a trial date on a Monday morning that follows an important out-of-town soccer tournament or cross-country meet that involves my family, I'll let the judge know, and we'll try to set it a week or two thereafter. That's important to me, and the judges appreciate that as long as you're upfront with them. And I'll tell you, even more importantly, who appreciates that, and that's the clients. When you're upfront with clients as to why you can't meet with them at 5 in the afternoon, they get it. They appreciate that, and I think they also respect it.
Right. Yeah. And you make a bunch of great points, and the reason, your kind of why, I think is what a lot of people who start and run a business in the right way, to where they, the business works for them instead of them working for the business. They see early on that the whole world opens up in terms of the possibilities out there. You get the opportunity to do what you love as a profession, and also really do the things that you love from a personal standpoint, which is something that a lot of people don't get to do.
Absolutely.
And,
right or wrong, you're doing it your way. And as long as you're making decisions and doing things your way, you know what? You sleep well at night. There's a certain level of gratification where you've brought value and helped somebody with something, in my case, with something tragic that's happened in their lives. It's just a great way to go through life, and being a lawyer is a great opportunity to help others. So that's my why.
Yeah, that's great. Fantastic. Okay, so let's switch gears a little bit. We know that you're a lawyer, right? But you also have it goes along with you being a lawyer, but you're a podcaster too, right?
Absolutely. Social media.
Yep. And you've got a podcast. Well, it's a blog, but you have a podcast on there called the Trial Lawyer Communication Tips for Everyone, right? That's the name of the blog and the podcast together. Is that right?
Yeah. What I have is I've always been fascinated by doing trial work and learning new communication tips, new ways to influence people, whether it's in trial, whether it's a juror, or whether it's at the negotiation table. And a couple of years ago, the light bulb went on, and I thought to myself, if I'm this enthusiastic and interested in communication skills and tips and techniques, maybe other people will be too. And a friend of mine who was the social media guy for Huffington Post Live interviewed me, Tim McDonald, and we started talking about communication tips. And what I noticed is that particular interview just pulled in a lot of eyeballs. And was very popular. And so I went from that to creating the Trial Lawyer Communication Tips for everyone. It's at mitchjackson.com. And what I try to do is share weekly blog posts, podcasts, videos, just sharing different ways people can communicate more effectively with their bosses, with their employees, or with their spouse on a Friday night in deciding what movie the family's going to see. So I enjoy doing that kind of stuff, and indirectly because of the blog, Chris, what's happened is it's really expanded my sphere of influence from not just a Southern California law firm, but to a law firm where almost daily we're being contacted by other lawyers, law professors, law clerks, and potential clients from around the world. So it's been a really fun and exciting addition to what I'm already doing each day practicing law.
Sure, and I want to make sure that we get everybody to the right place, because that's how I first, I think, heard and learned about you was I found your podcast, and
cool.
You can, I think you have a subscription. You can subscribe sort of like to like a digest, or you can get emails when you post new posts, right?
Sure.
On the site.
Sure. If they go to mitchjackson.com and just get on my email newsletter. And what happens, we'll send out links when new podcasts are done, new videos are done. We're shooting a video this afternoon, which I think is going to be pretty cool. We've got a new article coming out in Chris Brogan's Owner magazine. It's entitled 6 Principles to Win Friends and Influence People on Social Media. It's in the August 1st edition at ownermag.com. I'll be sharing these links through that particular newsletter as things come out. So it's fun, it's low key, it's just sharing communication tips, and it really doesn't have anything to do with my law firm.
Right. Well, yes and no. Right. The marketer in me knows that it does. And that's the beauty of social media and the internet in today's day and age. Because as you know, and I know that you know this, you don't always have to necessarily be pimping, for lack of a better word, your legal services. People get to know you and know who you are, and through that connection, when the opportunity arises, they almost feel compelled to reach out to you if they have a problem you can help them with.
Well, yeah, I'm hoping that in discussing something I'm passionate about, I'm hoping that I'm developing a rapport with people I'm connecting with, I'm engaging with, some level of trust, and expanding my sphere of influence. So yes, absolutely, it's about connecting with others. And you mentioned, I don't remember the term that you used, but what I'm seeing with most lawyers, many law firms, is they're going about social media the wrong way. They're jumping up on the soapbox and doing everything that most of us can't stand to watch when it comes to lawyer advertising, when it comes to lawyer marketing. It's those late night commercials that just makes you want to just turn the TV off. And what I've always done, whether it's starting blogging back in the late 1990s and through the 2000s, and especially with this communication tips blog, is I just like talking about things that interest me. If you're a lawyer and you're interested in baseball, what I think would be really cool is to do a blog about baseball and talk about the rules of baseball and the legal aspects of signing bonuses and everything else that just fascinates you about the sport of baseball, whether you're coaching, whether you're a fan, and indirectly every once in a while talk a little bit about a legal analysis as to something that's just happened in Major League Baseball. People will start connecting with you, and they'll start trusting you, and they'll start liking you. And then when they need a good lawyer for a particular legal matter, you're the one they're gonna call. And if you can help them, great. If not, you can refer them to someone who can help them. So Chris, yes, absolutely. It's been good for the firm, but that's not why I started doing it.
Right. Right. And that's kind of I don't know if he was the originator of this, but that's kind of the Gary Vaynerchuck sort of methodology, right? With using social media in today's times, is you just find something that you like and get into it, and that will help spread the word about you generally,
Absolutely. It just makes life more enjoyable too. If you're spending your free time between pleadings, filing lawsuits, meeting with clients, blogging, posting, podcasting about things that you're interested in,
right,
there's a group of people out there that you're going to connect with.
Right. And I'm starting a new podcast myself on the same lines that I'm trying to build up interviews for, but it's called Successful in Seattle. Right. And so what it is I'm going to just reach out and talk to successful business owners, successful people. I have some contacts at UW for some coaches and things like that. And I'm into not just business and entrepreneurship, but kind of the mindset behind, what it takes to be successful at what you want. So I'm pursuing that interest, it doesn't really matter if it does or not, but I can imagine that it's going to have a similar effect to what this podcast does for you,
Absolutely.
Because people, and the other thing too is, when you're interested in something, that flows through the microphone. People can, and on camera too, because you do a lot of video stuff as well, but people can see your enthusiasm, and your interest in what you're talking about. And that in and of itself helps build a great connection, I think, with people.
Well, two things. First of all, once we're done with the podcast, Chris, reach out to me on some Seattle contacts who might be great guests for your podcast, some very successful business people up there that I can put you in touch with. So I think you'll enjoy interviewing them. For those lawyers out there that aren't using video, start incorporating video into your practice. I will tell you that I don't like the way I sound on video. I don't like the way I look on video, but by far, it's been one of the most powerful tools to expand my sphere of influence across the globe, specifically platforms like Spreecast, where it's a talk show type of platform.
Right.
I've met so many good, nice, wonderful people on Spreecast and all the other different video platforms out there. You don't need to do things fancy. All you need to do is have great content, something that you're really interested in talking about. Unlike me, I made a lot of mistakes back in the day, Chris, with the first couple of dozen videos. Way too long, way too serious, but it's a process. And keeping your videos to 2 to 3 minutes, focusing on a particular point, it's been huge. And I really recommend everyone to look at incorporating video and podcasting into their daily practice.
Can you tell me? And I'm just interested in this actually. Can you tell me just real quick about Spreecast and what it is? Because I've seen you on it a bunch, like with Gary Vaynerchuck and things like that. But I don't really know about the platform. What is it?
Yeah, Spreecast it's a free platform that allows you to instantly, with 1 or 2 clicks, communicate with someone else via live video. And you can set it up almost like a talk show. So I can bring you on, we can have a live video conversation about a particular topic. There's real-time chat taking place in the sidebar. We can invite guests to join us on the show. We can pop someone on. You can see their live video. They can correspond or meet with you, talk to you, and then we can pop them back off. So it's a very dynamic platform that complements the major social media platforms. It doesn't really compete with them. So while you and I are on Spreecast, we can ask our viewers, go ahead and tweet out or share on Facebook, LinkedIn, Google+, the show. They click a button. A link goes out to the followers of that particular individual that, hey, there's a really interesting Spreecast taking place right now with Christopher Small and Mitch Jackson. They're talking about law firm management, law firm practice, and all of a sudden you'll see more and more people join the show and start participating. So it's a really cool platform, and that's the basic overview that, professionals who I've watched on Spreecast, who have embraced the program, Wall Street Journal, Anderson Cooper, Katie Couric, Chris Brogan, Seth Godin, Gary Vaynerchuck, just to name a few, and I'm missing a lot. But I mean,
Right.
just awesome people that are accessible to you and I, where that might not have been the case uh, in a different type of platform environment. So it's pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah, that's cool. Does it record for you?
Absolutely. One of the powerful things about Spreecast is the live show is automatically recorded. The same link that you use to promote the show and bring people onto the show, and frankly, the same link your guest used after the show, that link is what people can click on to watch a 24/7 recorded version of the show. And what we've seen on some of the shows is within 24 hours of a Spreecast wrapping up, we literally see thousands and thousands and thousands of unique views of people watching the recorded version of the Spreecast. So listeners to your podcast, they can use Spreecast to interview people that they're interested in meeting. They can use Spreecast to talk about different trial tips, to talk about different ways to start a law firm. You could have a weekly show about marketing. You can Spreecast privately with clients. I've had clients that I've never met here at the office, different locations around California, that we engaged almost exclusively on Spreecast on the back channels. And it's just it's an amazing tool.
Yeah, that's cool. That's a cool platform. I didn't know much about it. And by the way, for everyone that's listening, anything that we talk about here it will be linked to in the show notes. So
Very cool.
you just find the podcast, and so if you're driving, no need to pull over and write down Spreecast. It'll be in the show notes.
Can I give a quick plug real quick?
Of course.
I have a Spreecast coming up in September. If you follow me on Twitter, I'll tweet the link out. My Twitter handle's @Mitch Jackson, but I'm Spreecasting with David Merriman Scott, best-selling author, best-selling speaker. He's got a new book coming out regarding social media marketing. I think his last book was an international bestseller written in 17 different languages. But what's really cool, Chris, is David mentioned to me that he mentioned our firm or discussed our firm in one of his chapters.
Oh, cool.
It's really cool. So I'm going to be Spreecasting with David in September, and then we have another Spreecast. We're trying to line up the time and date with Sally Hogshead on her new book. She wrote the book Fascinate, which is a great book to read. But if you follow me on Twitter, those links will go out, and then you can kind of see how the whole Spreecast platform works.
Cool. Yeah, that's great.
Okay.
And I'll have your Twitter information too in the show notes and everything. And I follow you on Twitter. That's how we talk, is on Twitter, for all of you people out there. That's how I kind of introduced myself to Mitch and asked him to be on the show, was via Twitter. So that's
and it was easy.
It was really easy.
Yeah,
it was definitely very, very easy.
Cool.
And okay, let's talk about. Well, let's see. I want to talk about this. It's not really Spreecast, but sort of the interviews that you do, the podcast, your podcast in general. I want to talk about the fantastic guests that you've had on your show and had the opportunity to interview. People that I would consider A-listers, particularly kind of in the entrepreneurship niche.
Sure.
How and these are just some names you already mentioned: Chris Brogan, but Seth Godin, Julian Smith, Katie Couric, even you had an interview with, Gary Vaynerchuck. I'm sure there's a bunch of other people, but how? This is I'm sure I know the answer to this question, but how did you meet these guys? How did you, like, for example, Gary Vaynerchuck, I know is very, very difficult to get on an interview unless he's pushing a book.
There you go.
Is that what it was? You just reached out to him at the right time?
I don't remember the specifics with Gary, but I will tell you that what I've noticed is a lot of successful people really enjoy giving back. They really enjoy helping out younger entrepreneurs, younger lawyers, younger trial lawyers. I love mentoring young trial lawyers. That's my little thing. So all you have to do is reach out and ask. That's the first thing. You got to get the guts to pick up the phone, send an email, shoot a video clip, whatever it might be. You just have to ask. And if someone has a new book that's coming out, if someone has a movie that's coming out, if somebody's got a new course or program that's coming out, most of the time they're excited to have an opportunity to connect with your audience. And it's a timing thing. That's a great opportunity for you to reach out and get that person on your show. So for some of those individuals, timing was everything, as it is in life often. And that's probably how I got some of those people on the show. Some I've known, others I've been asked to come on the show. Someone else knew that somebody has an opportunity to interview somebody that's well known. And what's really smart is get other people on your show to participate in that interview. And you'll have a much more dynamic conversation. So reach out to Chris if you have a show and get him on the show with you. And what you'll find is you'll be tapping into not only your tribe, your followers, but also Chris's followers. And it just kind of snowballs. So it's just a matter of reaching out and asking Chris.
Sometimes that's the hardest thing to do, right?
Oftentimes, but it never hurts to ask, right?
Definitely.
And and along those lines, be smart about it. Don't waste anybody's time. Don't be a pest. Be organized. Let them know exactly what it is you want to have happen, how long it's going to take, what they need to know about the platform to participate on your show, whatever platform it might be, whether it's a podcast, Spreecast, what have you. And just be clear and concise in your communication. Normally, most of these people have handlers. They have people that book all this stuff for them. So you want to be polite and befriend those individuals also, and that will help, help make the show happen. I will tell you, there are some individuals who I've really wanted to get on Spreecast, but we could never make it happen. And I don't take it personally. It's just I understand, their schedule doesn't jive with mine, and that's fine. That's life. But someday it'll happen.
Yep, definitely. Okay, let's switch gears a little bit, and I want to talk about social media kind of generally.
Beautiful.
I know that you're a big proponent of social media, and to give you some examples, I was doing some research for the show, and I saw a picture of you wearing Google glasses and a T-shirt. I saw you asking questions to Steve Sarkeesian on a radio show. I think that was on Spreecast. And I saw there was a tweet that you sent out about doing wind sprints, at the local football field or something like that.
Oh yeah.
And I guess my first question is, I know that is. It's a philosophy towards social media, but I'm just wondering, is this something that developed over time for you? Has it always been a philosophy when it comes to social media, and I guess Twitter in particular? And if not, what is that philosophy? How do you approach social media from a business development standpoint?
That's a good question, and this is where I think a lot of people go about it completely wrong. I've always been a very transparent person. In other words, when I'm talking with clients, I always try to incorporate what I did last weekend or what I've done with the family into my initial client consultation. I want them to relax. I want them to know that I'm a human being just like they are. First time I met a lawyer, I remember I was about 16 years old. I wasn't in trouble or anything. I was meeting a lawyer on a business thing, and I was nervous. I was shaking. I had no business being in that lawyer's office. It was very intimidating for me. And I have a feeling for many of my clients, they feel the same way the first time they meet me. So by talking about sports and family and passions and interests and movies, it really does help everybody relax. Well, the same approach works on social media. I think if you bring in about 80% of your posts, your content, your tips, everything you just mentioned, nothing you just mentioned talked about my law firm or what type of law I practice, or if you hire me, this is what I can do for you. About 80% of what I put out there is about my activities, my passions, my interests. That's what gets people to connect with me. I'll get an email. I noticed you were out with your son throwing the football around, running the 40. My son's thinking about playing high school football. What are your thoughts on that? Or I've got a high school football player who was injured because of a defective helmet. Are these the types of cases that you handle? So what I found is as soon as lawyers get comfortable with letting their guard down and letting clients, potential clients, the world know that they're human beings, just like everyone else, and that they have interest and they have passions and activities they enjoy doing, that's where the connections start. That's where something special starts to happen. Every once in a while, you got to toot your own horn. If you don't do that, chances are no one else is going to do that for you. And I understand that and respect it. And once you develop these relationships, if you get a big jury verdict or you settle a big case or you're bringing in a new lawyer into the office, it's okay to share that with your audience because you've developed the trust, you've developed the rapport. They're actually genuinely interested in that part of your life too. So it's one of these things, if you want to get feedback, if you want to get heard above all the noise out there on social, it's really easy. All you have to do is be genuine, and all you have to do is to share a little bit about yourself. Be smart about it. I mean, I'm not posting personal addresses. I'm not posting home phone numbers and things like that, but I am sharing a bit of my life with my audience, and I will tell you that it works very, very well. And when I say it works, what I mean is new relationships are formed, new opportunities present themselves, and it's also just a kick in the ass to do. I just love doing this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we all just need to kind of relax as attorneys, right, when it comes to this kind of stuff.
You have to stop taking yourself so seriously, and you need to with social media, with everyone running around with smartphones. I think I read someplace by this time next year there'll be more smartphones on the planet than human beings, or maybe that's just the United States. The point is, we've got a society that needs answers immediately, and they're going to connect with people who they trust, who they feel like they have something in common with. And when people see the activities that I'm involved with, read my blog post about different topics that interest them, that's how you start bonding. That's how you start building rapport. And you don't have to make it any more complicated than that.
Right. What, let's say there's somebody listening right now that hasn't done any social media at all. Do you have any advice for where to start, kind of first steps to take, dip their toe in the water?
Absolutely.
What would you do if you were starting fresh?
Well, here's good news for your audience. The beginning of this month, beginning of July, I was asked to do a guest blog post. And what I did is it's 10 or 11, maybe it's 12 things that I would suggest any new user, whether it's a small business or a lawyer, these are the steps, these are the things you should do in today's environment, in 2014, to get involved on the digital platforms. And the post is at mitchjackson.com. It's at my trial lawyer communication tips blog, but I lay out exactly what you should do. And I mean, the first thing I tell people is before you do anything online, you have to understand what the rules are. You have to understand how to post information in the right context for any particular platform. You have to have good people skills. If you jump in and do everything wrong right off the bat, you're going to alienate people. So what you want to do is start off with having a blog and website or just a blog, and you want to start sharing posts about your interests. And when I say post, I talk about podcast, video. If you like to write, I want you to write. If you like to be on video, then by all means shoot video. And then you're eventually going to be sharing links to these blog posts on the major social media platforms. But you have to have the people skills to do that. When I have a young lawyer come to me, Chris, to mentor them on trial practice techniques, I won't even talk to that lawyer or start helping them with things until they first read Bob Burg's book called Adversaries into Allies: Win People Over Without Manipulation or Coercion. It's one of the best people skill books I've ever read. And, Bob's a great author, a great speaker.
I love Bob.
Yeah, I do too. He's awesome. And so whether you're a young trial lawyer, a young entrepreneur, or you're thinking about getting involved with social, the first thing I would suggest is read Bob's book, Adversaries into Allies, because that will show you how to interact with other people once you start developing your platforms. Social's like a big farm. Think of it as a big farm where you're going to be growing corn. It's one thing to have the open space, the open dirt, but you need to know how to prepare the soil. You need to know how to plant the seed. You need to know how to cultivate and water and harvest your crops. And there's a right and a wrong way to do it. And if you do it the right way, then you'll be able to continue helping people, continuing with your relationship, and continuing to move forward towards your ultimate goals. If you do it the wrong way, it's going to be a big dust bowl, and that's something you want to avoid. So that would be my first step.
Okay, that's fantastic. Great advice.
Cool.
All right. So, well, one of the next questions I was going to ask you was about a book that you could recommend, but I think we've got that answer down.
Absolutely.
Right?
I think
that's the one you wanted to do.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to just learning how to deal with other people, I think Adversaries and Allies is an excellent read. I also think that if you're looking to for something that will help you go about using social the right way. You mentioned Gary Vaynerchuck. I mean, he's got 3 good books. He's got Crush It, The Thank You Economy, and Jab, 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 Right Hook. Those are great books. Chris Brogan's got a couple of good books. Shaman Kabani's got a couple of excellent social media books. It's the same book, but it's a modern edition. And then David Meerman Scott's got just an excellent, if you go to David's website, just Google him, you're going to see some great reads on how to properly go about social media.
Right. Okay. Well, and since we're kind of on the advice train here, even kind of stepping back from social media and just as a law firm owner, what, like I said, we have a lot of people here that are relatively new with their firm, or they may be struggling a little bit. What kind of advice would you have for that person, that's just trying to kind of get out of the weeds maybe, or just try to start and get things clicking?
Absolutely.
What have you got for them?
Well, I would say they need to take a step back and appreciate the fact that we're living in a new world. Regardless of what you're doing, this is a different type of business world. And by that I mean it's all about connecting with people. It's all about connecting with your clients or your customers. So if we're focusing on lawyers, everything you're doing as a lawyer has to be focused on connecting with clients or potential clients. It has to be creating an exemplary client experience. So everything you do has to be client oriented. And by that, I mean, you have to set yourself up so that if a client needs to get in touch with you, it's easy for that client to get in touch with you on the platform or using the method that that client wants to use. So if the client wants to use the phone, they need to be able to get a hold of you or your 24/7 live answering service by the phone. If they want to DM you on Twitter, you have to have a presence there. Facebook, LinkedIn, Pinterest, Google+, whatever it might be, YouTube. You have to be accessible to today's client. That creates a good client experience because you're there for someone. You care enough about your client that you've made yourself available on the platform of their choice. So that's the first thing. Brian Solis wrote a great book. It's What's the Future of Business? And he talks about making and designing your practice or your business such that the client's best interest comes first, and using technology and using human interaction and various principles to make that experience something special. One of the things that we did, Chris, that I really recommend is we used a platform that allows us to set up in a cloud-based scenario a 24/7 client portal. The client can go to that portal anytime he or she wants, and they can check out their documents, their case calendar, upcoming events, court hearings. Everything's there for a client in a portal that's kind of like a Facebook type of portal. They can exchange documents, they can download documents, they can read things in the file. And we did that for 2 reasons. Primarily because it provides a unique service for a client that most law firms don't provide. And it shows that we care about making this information available to a client. One of the biggest concerns or gripes that clients have when it comes to dealing with lawyers is that the lawyer doesn't return my phone call. The lawyer doesn't keep me apprised or up to date with the status of my case. Well, by incorporating this tool into our daily practice, it's all but eliminated those two issues. Clients now have 24/7 access to their important case details. And so to answer your question directly, look at setting up your practice with that type of perspective in mind. Maybe start with incorporating that type of platform into your existing law firm. Or if you're starting a law firm, research cloud-based services and find one that you're comfortable with that offers this back-end service to your clients, because that's going to separate you from all the other lawyers in town. That might be a good place to start.
Okay, great. And our time is almost up, so I have two final questions for you, and then I'll let you get out of here. Well, I really have one final question. Well, I'm gonna put you on the spot too, by the way. So what's the one question that I didn't ask you that I should have?
Well, we talked about it a little bit, but I think the question is, in today's legal world, today's legal environment, today's digital world, the question would be, how important is it to develop a digital footprint? How important is it to develop your reputation on the digital platforms? And we did talk a little bit about it, but let me just wrap up with saying, if you're not on the digital platforms, if you're not engaging clients on social media, if you're not blogging, if you're not doing all the things that Chris and I talked about, you're not going to be digitally relevant in the next 3 to 5 years. You may not even have a practice to go to in 5 years. That's how important I believe the digital platforms are. That's how important this direction, this transition of the practice of law is. And I'm speaking almost 3 decades of watching how the practice of law has developed. So it's really important that your listeners embrace digital, embrace social media, embrace putting client services first, so that 5 or 10 years from now, they'll have the type of law firm, they'll have the type of practice that they really want to have deep down inside, deep in their heart. You know what you want to have down the road. To get to that point, focus your attention on doing everything we talked about on the digital platforms.
Great. So just finally, if people want to get in touch with you or learn more about you, how can they do that one final time?
Well, thanks for asking, Chris. My law firm website is jacksonandwilson.com. Most of our contact information is there. My communication tip sites is mitchjackson.com. And if you want to connect with me on Twitter, I'm at Mitch Jackson. All the above, works just fine. If you want to pick up the telephone and give me a call, that's always a pleasure too. So whatever works for your listeners works for me, Chris.
All right, fantastic. And thank you so much for your time and all of your insight. I loved it, so I know the listeners are going to love it too. And that's it for today.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. It was my pleasure.
All right, take care.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.
Okay, hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. Like I said, there are a ton of nuggets in there. I hope you had your notepad out and were taking notes. Go listen through it again and actually write down the things that he suggests to do and go do them, because they are things that work for him. And as you could tell from the interview, he's doing really well for himself. He loves his life. He has the opportunity to not just work and be a great lawyer, but also do whatever he wants with his family, spend time with his kids, and do what is high on his priority list, which is, one of the things that you get to do as a law firm owner, right? That's one of the cool things that happens when you run your own business, is that you have complete freedom to do what you want, when you want. All right. One last shout out here. I want to encourage you, if you like this show, to tweet about it, to talk about it on Facebook, share it with your friends. If you have other lawyers that are in the same spot that you think this might help, please forward this to them. You can also go to iTunes and leave a review, and you can also subscribe so you don't miss any episodes. Like I said, we're at 69 right now, so we've been going for quite some time. We haven't, I wasn't really religiously going every week, but I have been going every week for like the last 5 months probably, and we'll continue to in the future. then there's going to be a sort of a specific format going forward. We're going to have interview one week, sort of like me talking one week, getting a point across. Interview, point, interview, point. So I know that you all like interviews. I love having interviews on here, and I'm continuing to line more up. If you know someone that you think would be a good interview on the show, whether they're a successful law firm owner or any successful business owner that would have some insight that would be good for us as business owners of law firms, then please reach out to me, chris@lawfirmmarketingmastery.com, and make that introduction. I'd love to talk to anybody to see if they would be a good fit for the show, and maybe have them on. Obviously, if you put them on, I'll give you the shout out. So as always, have a great week. Hope you enjoyed this interview, and I will talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.